is the Music City, but there is nothing lyrical about the problem plaguing its intersections, its tourist hotspots, its greenways. We're not going to try to convince you Nashville has a homeless problem. You don't have to leave your car to see the problem for yourself. Nashville is now on the verge of ruining the tourist industry that brings millions of dollars to Nashville for its live music and vibrant nightlife on Broadway. In 2019, Broadway merchants shared surveillance video with Fox 17 News of a homeless man pushing this tourist to the ground. Another can be seen hiding a brick near a storefront. The homeless problems prompted the owner of Tootsie's, a legendary downtown bar and restaurant, to release this video calling on the government to do something. The Tootsie's video was a foreshadowing of what was to come. In May of this year, a homeless man attacked a Tootsie's security guard, knocking the man unconscious. This is a Fox 17 News investigation. We are committed not only to uncovering the high cost of homelessness, but finding solutions.
If you are unaware of the extent of Nashville's homeless problem, prepare to be shocked at what we're about to show you. Once in the shadows, Music City's homeless population is now center stage.
It's unconscionable. Why?
On the corner, in the street, in the parks.
Underneath every overpass, every bridge, every clump of trees you see, behind every Kroger's, behind every Walmart, in every park.
Chris Dillard would know. You see, the former banker used to live under one of the bridges until recently.
I'm an MBA in finance. I was working at a bank until I got struck down by a terrible disease, which can happen to anybody. A spine disease called Ankylosing Spondylitis, or AS.
He's had 6 spine surgeries, the last 2 in October. How many homeless people do you think we have in Nashville?
Minimum 20,000.
That 20,000 figure is one Dillard estimates after surveying the homeless population and using his statistics skills from years in banking. His opinion? Nashville's homeless population estimate of 2016 is way off. What you're looking at here is just one Nashville park, overrun and converted to a homeless encampment, complete with siphoned electricity and water from nearby businesses, and generators in other parts.
When you hear a generator going, what do you think about that?
Permanence.
That is permanent.
It's like, hey, nobody's going to do anything.
The city of Nashville closing its own 14-acre park to nearby families, the taxpayers.
We have people that are camped all the way to the river. They're contaminating the Cumberland.
They need to stop asking us to be patient.
And this is just one encampment. There are so many more. On riverbanks, in greenways, in medians. Until recently, a homeless man put up furniture, hung pictures, and planted a tree at the intersection of I-65 and Rosa Parks in Metro Center.
This is all coming to a park near you if we don't do something about it.
The look of desperation, the same nearly everywhere you turn. On Broadway, they set up micro businesses for the day without permits, like, say, a hot dog vendor would need. Meet Catman.
I've actually claimed this corner about 3 years ago.
Homeless since 16.
My dad put a gun in my head like this and told me point blank, happy 16th birthday, and I could out of my house.
He's 28 now. People pay him money to pet his cat, Aria, and they've made a mindless drinking game out of throwing bucks in his bucket from balcony bars.
Long-term plan.
My long-term plan is actually getting off these streets.
But they're not all as approachable as Catman. Watch as this homeless man bum rushes a tourist, knocking him to the ground. Do you think these visitors will come back to Nashville?
It's important to Nashville. This is the golden goose here. We need to protect it.
Ed Smith owns most of the boot stores on Broadway. In business down here more than 40 years.
This was standing upright, but when you try to get them to move or to leave this loading zone, this guy threw a fit, and he grabbed this and bent it over. And when he didn't get it to break, he went over and kicked the window out. We gotta fix this. I see it from a business standpoint.
And if you don't let them use your bathroom, he says be prepared for revenge. Watch as this homeless man throws his feces on the business door that turned him away. Watch that again.
We've had knives come after us. We've been spit on. We've been pushed and grabbed. We want to see the streets safe for all people.
Hey now.
A few short years ago, you had to have a lanyard, a license, a reason to be on a corner. You had to be selling the homeless newspaper. How, we ask, did we get from this to this?
We are just a prime example of what happens when you ignore the problem.
Dillard puts it more bluntly.
Think we're not managing it well in Nashville?
Am I allowed to curse? We're not doing in Nashville. No, I take that back. Metro government is not doing a single thing.
A plywood pleasure palace in the middle of a West Nashville greenway. Community members call it a drug den, and the man they say is behind it is finally arrested.
This arrest gave us hope.
So why is he back on the streets just weeks after his arrest?
Do they not know who he was?
Catch and release issue helping fuel the high cost of homelessness.
You've heard of catch and release in the criminal justice system. Police catch them, the system releases them. What does that look like here at Brookmeade Homeless Camp? It looks like Vernon Spicer. It just didn't look right in the center of the Brookmeade Greenway Homeless Camp, sporting the best view on the Greenway, a plywood pleasure palace complete with Ring doorbell and run by 2 generators. Police believed Vernon Spicer was supplying this heavy drug-using community of 80 people, and of course that was a problem. Begging and stealing for money for drugs is no way out of this place. And so when police arrested Mr. Spicer with 12.5 grams of meth and heroin, they thought they finally had him. After all, he was already on felony probation, and this charge was felony drug dealing. Jail time seemed certain, but once it got in the criminal justice system, it began to unravel. First, Judicial Magistrate Daniel Maston literally changed the arrest warrant. Fox 17 learned Magistrate Maston decided that although 12.5 grams is a large amount of meth, it was in one package, so you couldn't call it intent to sell because it wasn't packaged in individual servings. That moved it from a felony to a misdemeanor. Westmead activist Lou Wilbanks.
This arrest gave us hope, and we thought that a big criminal element would be taken out of this area, and I can't believe what happened.
Judge Aaron Holt refused the plea bargain and insisted Spicer spend at least the maximum 30 days in jail, and stipulated that living in Brookmeade would be a probation violation that would trigger a 6-month sentence. It was not a lot, but the most he could do. But there was still another chance to put Mr. Spicer in prison, because that new drug charge, even reduced, was a violation of his probation. In the summer of 2019, he was caught with a loaded gun, a black digital scale, and small plastic baggies. He also had pills and heroin. Felony drug dealing and a convicted felon with a firearm, the probation violation, if revoked by the judge, would send him to jail for 2 years. Tennessee Voices for Victims, Verna Wyatt.
This guy that was selling drugs to the homeless encampment, he's out of control. His normal is selling drugs and being high. That's his normal. And until he's taken out of his normal by our criminal justice system and put in a different setting, he's going to continue to do that because that's his normal.
Instead, Judge Cheryl Blackburn did not revoke his probation. She simply restarted his probation and added drug treatment. The assistant district attorney in the same courtroom had no objection, nothing to say.
Do they not know who he was? Do they not know what's happening over here? Do they have their heads buried in the sand?
Vernon Spicer is already back on the street. Several people have seen him, and they tell me he is definitely not seeking treatment. Metro Parks and Codes cleverly teamed up to rule his plywood pleasure palace unfit for habitation and bulldozed it. But all the hard work to get him off the streets was also bulldozed by the very justice system tasked with protecting the public.
I just am speechless. I'm speechless that he has a history like this and is continuing to get out and in that revolving door of hope. We hope you're going to change. We hope this is going to help you. What do you need for him to murder someone? Too late. Too late.
So where is Vernon Spicer now? believe it or not, I just saw him right here in clear violation of his probation agreement. I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Seattle is dying.
I could go down here and pee on the street or crap over there or smoke a joint. No one's going to get arrested for doing that.
Is Nashville next?
Everyone got the message. It's a free-for-all down here.
A hard look at our city's future and the lasting impact of the high cost of homelessness. One thing Metro and state leaders can't do in regards to Nashville's homeless problem is ignore it.
If they try to kick the can down the road, this city, which is Tennessee's largest economic engine, will eventually suffer, perhaps beyond repair. A cautionary tale now from Seattle, Washington, a city that largely ignored its homeless problem until it couldn't. Seattle, Washington, population 755,000. It's slightly larger than Nashville and also one of the fastest growing big cities in the country. But Seattle is a few years ahead of Music City when it comes to homelessness.
It just has gone downhill.
Steve Danishek is a lifelong resident. Like virtually all of his neighbors, he has watched his city change in recent years because of a homeless problem that is now out of control.
I could go down here and pee on the street or crap over there or smoke a joint. No one's going to get arrested for doing that because they're not doing that. They're not arresting anyone.
Homeless encampments are all over, in city parks, vacant lots, beside interstates, and on sidewalks and roadsides near businesses. Danishek says when the DA stopped prosecuting people for minor offenses, the police stopped writing tickets. He says it was the beginning of the end.
Everyone got the message. It's a free-for-all down here. It's the Wild West. No laws apply. Do whatever you want.
Crime and violence are both up in Seattle, with the city ranking among the nation's leaders for theft, vandalism, and other crimes. Open drug use is common, and residents are fed up. The resentment with public inaction by city leaders bubbling up at a public meeting in 2018.
Will you manage these camps, and will you enforce the law?
And when a city councilman suggested residents call 911 when they see problems, it was the last straw.
You said call 911. Do you understand that the police have told us to vote you all out so that they can do their jobs? And you're telling us to call 911? You're smiling. You think it's funny? You think it's funny the way we're living?
And residents aren't the only ones taking notice. Tourists like Glenn and Denise Cummins from Tennessee could hardly believe their eyes.
Well, it's kind of surprising. I don't know why the city would let that happen. I mean, this is your touristy spot. Why does the city put up with it? That's a public spot. Why does somebody get to stay there? I don't understand that. I would be arrested, I thought, in my town if I did that.
I mean, right by our parking garage, there's just trash and...
Oh, the smell was awful.
Oh my God, the smell is horrible in any stairwell you go into around here. Oh.
This downtown park right across from Seattle City Hall was taken over by the homeless. Hardly a blade of grass to be seen. The park was shut down back in August and 70 campers were forced out. But it only happened after the county threatened to take legal action against the city.
All we have ever wanted is for the city to do their job to maintain the park in a safe manner.
A small step toward addressing a problem Seattle residents are embarrassed by, and a problem Seattle's version of the Nashville Business Journal estimates is now costing taxpayers $1 billion a year. A precious park for children, now a heroin den.
We are in the parks business, and I always say we're in the fun business.
Taken over by Nashville's homeless.
Some people were living under the pavilion. They were using the water splash for their own bathroom needs.
The call to action and why some say it's falling on deaf ears.
What do you do when your precious park is taken over? What do you do when the water feature for the kids to play becomes a bath for naked adults? What do you do when the soft place to land becomes a place to crash after heroin? This is Park Azafrán, a public-private partnership. $1.5 million in fundraising, another $500,000 from Metro Parks, and you have the prettiest little preschool park in Nashville. Best of all, it was here in low-income South Nashville. Then the homeless discovered it, and trouble followed. Marta Silva, Interim Executive Director of Conexión Americas.
Some people were living under the pavilion. They were using the water splash for their own bathroom needs. And then we, of course, all together took action to see how we could bring the park back to safety. Many people, of course, felt unsafe.
Conexión Americas and Casa Azafrán called the police and called parks. Something had to be done. Rick Taylor from Metro Parks.
We've had homeless people actually using some of the water features that are available here, water fountains, etc., to take baths naked. It's not a great environment for children, and also I know the police department has made a few arrests here. Mostly I think they were drug arrests, so there's been a drug issue here as well.
One time a man high on something started threatening a teacher in the playground. Casa Azafrán also reported numerous break-ins. There were needles all over the playground, the benches were beds, the electricity a place for the homeless to charge their phones. Finally, after many meetings, a plan was hatched. Remove the park benches, turn off the electricity, turn off the water. No more water fun, but maybe no more trouble.
We are in the parks business, and I always say we're in the fun business, right? And we always want to provide recreational opportunities for everyone in our city. And there are certain places, in our park system that, homeless encampments are interfering with that intended purpose of that specific park.
Stripped of some of its best amenities, the park is now back to being a preschool park, but at a cost. Parks even had to remove the $6,000 wheelchair-accessible drinking fountain because for some reason the homeless destroyed it.
And I think that's when we need to see the problem as a whole.
Marta Silva wants everyone to know she's not criminalizing homelessness. She wants to help the homeless. This is more than homelessness. It's drug addiction and danger. And her main role is to keep this park safe for very small children.
This is a drug use issue. Really, we have a community of homeless people that don't represent any harm for anybody, but there are others that because of the drug use, they become more violent and more representing a threat for us.
Silva hopes this is just temporary, and come spring everything can be fixed, return to its intended joy. But how will that happen?
They're working hard on trying to find some housing, but there's also a mental health and drug addiction component to this that also needs to be addressed, because not addressing that, you're not fixing the problem.
Stripping the park of its amenities has diminished the homeless problem, but it's also diminished the joy for the kids. We'll see what happens when things get warmer. I'm Dennis Ferrier, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Compassion and results.
If we can stop it now, we have a chance.
How other cities are finding tried and true solutions to the high cost of homelessness. Austin, Texas has a homeless issue. Look how they're dealing with it. Colorado has one too. Sanctioned homeless camps is their solution. In Germany, they've gone to windproof, waterproof, solar-powered sleep capsules. Even San Francisco has buckled to its homeless problem, setting up a tiny cabin village for its homeless. In Nashville,
if we can stop it now, we have a chance.
Rebecca Lowe became so concerned about a homeless camp that's overrun Brookmeade Park, she started the group Reclaim Brookmeade Park.
This is not healthy. This is not nice.
Members don't want those down on their luck kicked out with nowhere to go. They're instead earnestly looking for solutions.
I found a piece of property on the Cumberland River.
Okay. That the city owns.
That the city owns.
It's not being used for anything else?
No.
Fox 17 News had Lowe take us there.
My idea is to create a transition center on this 50 acres. We create a nice entranceway here, has a welcome building, a place where you can come in and get your assigned site.
The property is in West Nashville. Once earmarked for a park, it never became one.
I'm trying to find a fast solution.
It's bordered to the south by the Cumberland River, state property to the west, John C. Toone Airport to the north, and a Goodwill distribution center to the east.
We have access for the nonprofits to come in and take care of those folks and for them to be able to access them, but probably most importantly, we have all the facilities that they would need in terms of toilets, showers, water, electricity, and an address.
It's about 50 acres, just like the example I showed you at the beginning of this piece in Austin.
Welcome to Austin's most talked about neighborhood.
This is a video tour of the Community First Village run by Mobile Loaves and Fishes. All of these people, every one of them, lived on the streets, some of them for decades. Now they all live in their own neighborhood, and yes, they all work. Amber Fogarty is the president.
So whether that's creating art or wood products or jewelry and having the opportunity to sell those, or being part of our property beautification team or our janitorial team to really care for this incredible community, that provides that opportunity for the neighbor to earn dignified income so that they can pay their rent. Everyone who lives here pays rent, and everyone is considered an important part of this community.
Here in Community, those who've been chronically homeless are able to make connections, get mental health help, addiction services, and yes, before you ask, everyone works and pays rent.
Our belief is that the single greatest cause of homelessness is the profound, catastrophic loss of family.
Well, this is a permanent community for those who want to stay here.
But I'm sure there's a water line out here.
Lowe's idea for Nashville is more of a transitional concept, a safety net from the streets.
This is important for the city to understand. The mayor's office is dead set on not having transitional housing. That's the problem. They want to go straight from the tent into a motel room for a short period of time and then into permanent housing. So the first big problem with that is there's not enough of it. It doesn't exist.
Not with the number of homeless people Nashville now has. And just in the last few weeks, Lowe says after the city shot down her idea for homeless shelters, it did end up buying 25 of them, but only to isolate COVID-positive homeless people outside the mission.
Thanks for watching Fox 17 News High Cost of Homelessness.
Fox 17 News is committed to tracking this issue, getting results for our community. You can see all of our reports at fox17.com.